Happy Tuesday night, PFL Nation. It is your boy John Smith on the In the Booth podcast, episode 7, and tonight we have a very special last episode before the playoffs, and it is just me and my main man, Austin Briley. Say what's up, bro.
What's up, everybody?
This week we do not have a guest. We were going to have Zeke on, but he's been a little preoccupied with all the prep for the playoffs, so we're going to have him on a bit later, do a playoff special episode with Zeke, so make sure you tune into that later on this week. Otherwise, AB and I, the format's just going to be what you guys are used to. We're going to talk about the games, and then at the end here it's going to be a little special. We're going to talk about those conference championships coming up. But for now, let's just jump right into it, AB. We got the first game of the week, which was Texas dominating LSU 47-20. This was an expected victory, but honestly, man, thanks to a game we'll get to a bit later in the pod, LSU finished last in the country, 14th overall. Do you feel like that was a deserved rank, or do you feel like that was just kind of LSU trying to figure things out still and not really the worst team in the nation?
I don't know. I remember seeing this game close for a minute.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see too much of the game other than that, but yeah, I don't know. But shout out to Texas though.
Yeah, I mean they cranked it up towards the end.
If we're gonna say it about Cincinnati, if you're the worst team in the nation, this is kind of just taking care of business.
Right. I mean, you're not wrong. We'll get there. Who's no longer the worst team in the nation, but I agree. I feel like if you're a top team, and Texas loves to stout that they're a top team and they're coming for that national championship, well, then you have to come out here and perform, in the very first real free game for their season. So I agree with you. I feel like it's important that they went out there and performed, and they did what they needed to do. Into the next game, which was insane. All right, for those that don't remember the playoff implications here, Notre Dame needed to win to have a shot at making the playoffs. So it was a huge game, and Sam Hartman and company fumbled the bag as they lost 46-13, which is just absolutely insane of a result. AB, how do you feel about this one, man? Personally, I could not believe what I was seeing while I was watching this game live. And I know that Coach Zeke, who had to commentate it himself, was not happy either.
Yeah, this is the game that we all wanted to see too. 13 points. That's crazy, bro, because Miami's been struggling a lot lately.
Yep.
And Swavey just came back and put on a show. 3 touchdowns for the 3.
Dude, it was crazy. I really couldn't believe it when I was watching this. PS3 came out, did its thing. Notre Dame struggled all night offensively to get the ball moving. It was really a different performance than what we're used to out of Notre Dame for sure. And I know them boys were upset in the locker room. I know they were upset after the game. And, I do expect to see a good bounce back out of Notre Dame coming up in CS3. But that is going to wrap up their season. They do finish 5-7 and 10th in the nation. AB, to me, this is overall a disappointing season for Notre Dame. Obviously, you can chalk up some games to their early performances with Christian Ross, but you can also see here that they still weren't really there, right? They have a lot of talent on that team, but it just wasn't quite performing. How do you feel? What are a key piece you think they're going to need in order to elevate going into the next series?
I think this is a game that Christian Ross would have probably gotten done. Like I said, there's things that Hartman does that Cross won't do, and there's things that Cross does that Sam Hartman won't do.
Yep.
And so I think a quarterback is the biggest piece to it.
Yeah.
Other than that, just maintaining their team, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I feel like they're definitely going to be on the lookout to see who's available in the portal come this recruiting season, as they do have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, and I know that they're going to be one to just fill up that quarterback position and take care of business from there. So with that, we will move on to the next game, which was super close. Super close. Went into OT. Both teams had a chance to win it in OT. Ended up going to a third possession where it ultimately sealed the deal. Ole Miss and FSU, man, this was a classic. Ole Miss did lose, which was really scary until we get to the last game of the week, as they almost got knocked out of the playoffs. They will make it into the playoffs as the 8th seed. FSU looked a little shaky there for quite a while in this game. Ended up locking up that 9-3 overall record and number 1 team in the nation. AB, how are we feeling about this game? Do you think this was FSU looking a little scary going into the playoffs, maybe a little shaken up? Or do you think Ole Miss really wanted to come out and make a statement and absolutely secure that playoff victory, and that's why it was so close?
I think Ole Miss wanted to come and get the playoff victory. Or get into the playoffs with the victory or something like that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But they're still there, so it don't matter, I guess.
Yeah.
No, I think they really did want to win this game, and I think they caught Florida State on an off week, and so they just weren't able to get it done, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I really.
Well, it's about time this defense stepped up, for real.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. They did a lot. And Mamadou looked amazing in this game, as he really has been consistent all season. But Ole Miss not quite able to pull off the W. FSU did come out with it and secured that number 1 team. And, we're going to talk more about their playoff hopes here by the end of the pod. But I'm very, very excited at seeing how these playoffs are going to start with FSU and their conference championship. And with that, let's move on to finally getting to the game we're most excited about. Let's hear it, AB. We got Cincinnati coming out with the dub, beating UGA 20-14, making a statement for this new program who, will now be rebranded as Tennessee going into CS3. AB, I was so excited watching this, man. I was so happy to see Cincinnati win, to see them get that dub on the board and move out of that last place position. How are you feeling, man? Are you just as excited as me?
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a school that obviously we talk a lot about on here, and so here, give me just 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I mean, like AB said, we talk about this every single week. Honestly, we always root for Cincinnati in their games. I honestly have a really good time rooting for Cincinnati. I like IJ a lot. I think Coach Juan is going to do great there. Now that they're Tennessee, I really expect to see a good recruiting portal out
He'll
of
look
him.
good in a uniform, a Tennessee uniform.
Absolutely,
But
he will.
I didn't get to watch this game. I'm going back to what I was saying, but it happened when I was at work. But I went and looked at it, and I was like, I saw it was tied, and I was like, no way. And I was like, what if Cincinnati actually wins this? And I saw it went to overtime, and so I got worried. And then all of a sudden, yeah, Georgia just fallen apart.
Yeah.
Ever since being number 1 in the nation, I think they've lost every game, haven't they?
Yes. So since they got that first upset, they have yet to win, which is crazy to think about. They went from 6-3 to 6-6, and they just haven't been able to figure it out. So I'm going to make my first bold playoff prediction right here, AB, and I do think UGA is going to be a first round exit. What do you think?
Yep. I said it last week.
Yep, you did. So I just want to say I'm in agreement at this stage. This performance really solidified it for me. I will be very surprised if they make it out of the first round. And I'll tell you what, if they keep performing like they did against Cincinnati, it's not going to be a pretty game either. And with that, let's move on to what I thought was the most exciting game of the week
This is the funniest game of the week.
Until our game. So this was basically just a battle for seeding. Utah did end up winning and securing the number 2 spot in the nation.
Putting on their Oregon special.
31-23. The first game.
On the comeback, bro.
Just for seeding. A huge comeback victory out of Utah. Again, locking in that 9-3 record with only FSU better than them. They look really good going into the playoffs. Honestly, like I've said in the chat many times, I could see a repeat national championship game between Utah and FSU yet again here in CS2. They looked good all around. Rado did his thing. Bo did his thing.
And Azell looked great as well, both in catching and running. He really, did what he needed to do. Obviously, his one rushing touchdown wasn't even for a yard, but he was out there when he needed to be. And Bama, while Bama didn't look bad by any means, I mean, Romo went crazy. K. Grad did what he needed to do on only 13 carries, and Carson obviously performed as well. I think Utah clearly dictated they're the better team, and they showed that in this game. What do you think, AB? You mention it every single week. You talk about Utah just being consistent, doing what they need to do. Do you feel like that's just more of the same from them this week as well?
I think it got a little scary for a second. What's fun about, or what's not fun about a little, I guess, shaking up.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think consistency is again a big thing. They didn't start off consistent, but then they got back into their consistency, and then it delivered, and it delivered in a pretty impressive way too.
Yeah,
It wasn't.
absolutely.
This was no slow comeback. This was very, very quick.
Absolutely. They came out crazy. Carson, for those that don't know, Bama had a 14-0 lead in the first quarter, and Carson had almost 200 yards in the first quarter. The game was looking rough, and Utah managed to claw their way back into it and come out with a statement victory going into the playoffs, which has to feel good for their momentum. Going to probably the least interesting game of the week after that one would be UCLA versus Michigan.
J.C. Parker.
Casey Parker came out and did his thing yet again with 74 rushing yards and another rushing touchdown, along with 3 touchdowns in the air with 300 yards behind it. UCLA, of course, they did bench Mav and played Griffin, but while he didn't have a terrible game by any means, obviously he did not have a super impactful game. And UCLA is once again on our low light board for the In the Booth podcast, as Michigan kind of did just whatever they wanted to do against this team. It is no surprise how low on the totem pole UCLA ended up finishing this year. They've had very brief flashes of brilliance, but then a whole lot of negativity around them. AB, I'm going to ask the same question I did for Notre Dame. I don't really feel like this season was a massive disappointment for UCLA. I don't think it was an expectation for them to be like this. But do you think they're just a quarterback away? Do you think it's just Mav's replacement has to come in and do the work? Or do you feel like they have a ways to go before this team is a contender?
No, there's a ways to go. This is a building team. I used to think it was maybe a quarterback thing, but now, just seeing it, it needs more.
Yeah. What about Michigan, man? Do you think Casey Parker's the truth? Do you think CS3 we're going to see a massive bounce back for Coach Diggs and company, or do you feel like this isn't a good test game like we always talk about because of the competition?
No, I think this will be cool to see. Um, I do think he might be the real deal,
All
and
right.
so we'll have to see though.
Yeah. I mean that definitely makes it more exciting.
Plenty of quarterbacks start off well in this league. It's who
Absolutely.
stays good.
Absolutely. Remember Miami in PS3. So the quarterback ride is definitely an up and down roller coaster. That's for sure. And we can move on to my favorite game of the week and one of my favorite booth calls of all time. Of course, it was with you. It was us playing. It was a fantastic game to call. Honestly, it was really back and forth. I had a great time talking through this one. I don't have a whole lot to say here. I don't know if you do, but I do just want to say big flowers to you, man. You've had an incredible season. You showed out again against us. No interceptions. 31 to 38, almost 400 yards. Of course, Tamari Jones in the backfield went crazy as well, breaking the record for receiving yards for running back in a game. Absolutely fantastic performance all around out of Oregon. And I'm happy with my guys too, man. Obviously, Caleb is going to be gone next year, so that's going to be our biggest question mark. But overall, I feel really good about how we've been looking these last few weeks. I mean, we took you to the wire. We had a chance to win it at the end there. Um, and overall, I feel good about our performance. But I did just want to make sure publicly to congratulate you and Oregon on what you guys have pulled off. And, of course, I wish you the best of luck in the conference championship game coming up.
I appreciate it. Yeah, there's not a lot to be said on it. Just it was what it was, and it's always tough in a situation like that when you got two guys like us that are as good of friends as we are, and then something like this has to happen. But
Yep. Somebody's got to lose.
yeah. But that's football, and
Yep.
so
Yep.
that's what we're all here to do.
Ole Miss
There is
definitely
a
owes
piece
you
of
a
it.
thank you basket, by the way.
There is a piece of it that is just the show.
Yep. Yep.
Um, then yeah, and things just go the way they go for everybody to see.
Yeah.
And that's how the cookie crumbles.
Yep. You know, you can't control everything, but I will say it was really fitting that we had such a back and forth game. That definitely added to the excitement. And that will wrap up our week 12. So, with that, we are looking at the CS2 playoffs. For those that don't know how the format's going to work, basically first we have the 1 and 2 seed from each conference are going to play each other for a conference championship matchup. And then the 6 best teams right below them afterwards will join in and we'll hold our very first bowl games for each round of the playoff until we get to the Natty. So each round will have its own individual bowl game until obviously we eventually reach the national championship. But we do have to start off with what I'm very excited to talk about, which is, of course, the conference playoffs, the Icons and the Legends Conference Finals. Game 1, AB, we got FSU against Utah. We've seen these guys go to war plenty of times at this stage. What kind of result are you thinking? Because it's only a couple matches, I actually want you to do me a favor. I know we don't normally do this, but I want you to give me a score that you're expecting out of this game.
42-27. No, 42-20. Not 27. 42-35 Utah.
Okay. So high scoring, but ultimately Utah comes away with it. Now I got to ask, is it they have the ball at the very end and they score the winning touchdown? Or is it they've controlled the lead and they stop FSU from tying it up in the end?
I think they've controlled it.
Okay. I mean, they have been very consistent. We've been talking about this probably for 5 of our 7 episodes now, to be honest with you. They've been very consistent with it. I expect that game to be highly contested, very close. My score is a little different from yours. I'm not as high flying. I think it's going to finish 35-31. I'm expecting 5 touchdowns and 4 touchdowns and a field goal, but I'm going to go with FSU. I think FSU is going to be able to pull it off, lock in that 1 seed. I think Coach Kappa against Coach Harris is going to be
Does this
an
affect
amazing
seeding
matchup.
again?
It can't really because of how close the 2 teams are. It might have a jump between obviously just the 1 and 2 spots, but it won't affect the 3 to 8.
Because like, say one of the 4 of us wins the Natty, we'll have an extra game on our season.
Yep, that is true. That is actually true. And that affects, obviously we're going to look at that for statistics and things. But for direct seedings in the playoffs, basically every team, the most the teams can jump. So obviously this more applies to Bama and Georgia, would be 1 slot. And in Bama's case, they would not be able to jump Utah or FSU because of the fact that they're already naturally seated below them. But let's say you win, we could see Oregon jump up a spot in the seeding.
For sure.
That's the basic idea. But you cannot jump up multiple spots. I wouldn't anticipate you going up multiple seeds.
I'm just saying, like, if Florida State loses, are they losing their number 1 seed?
Potentially. We haven't confirmed that yet. We're still kind of talking through that as a staff, what that would look like on the bracket. But it is going to be a game we're going to look to and say, okay, what did this performance look like? And does Utah deserve that number 1 spot going into the playoffs? So that's that big impact there. And then obviously for your game, hey, if Oregon dishes out a big victory, does that mean that Oregon deserves to move up a spot for seeding as well?
I got a score for that one too.
Yep, that's where I was just about to ask. So, getting into your game, what is your expectation? Who do you think is coming out on top? And what does that score look like?
28-24 Alabama.
Alabama? Oh no, AB. No, rooting against your own player. I don't know if that's the move. I will say I'll go with
Only because we lost to Alabama before.
You did, but you're a different quarterback now. and I'm going to go with 31-28 Oregon. I think you're going to win. I do. I have good faith in your team. You've been
I think
putting
Carson will put on a show, bro.
I think so, but I think you will too. And I think you've been putting up very consistent high scoring numbers. I think this game's going to not match, but mirror our game. And I think you're going to come out on top 31-28. That's my expectation.
For sure.
So, with that does wrap up our In the Booth pre-playoff special. We can't wait to be here with you guys for this week of exciting conference playoff finals. Continue to get ready for the playoffs. Remember, the next time we do this will be our exclusive playoff episode, and Zeke will be on that as well. So we're very excited for that one. Lots of good stuff going on this week, guys. Been a fantastic season 2. Thank you for having me. Austin, of course, I will let you get the last word in, but just shout out everybody for tuning in. It's been a fantastic, 7 weeks of In the Booth. And, yeah, that's all I got. John Smith out.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thank you for tuning in for that game last week. Thank you for tuning in tonight, as always. First ever In the Booth podcast that is recorded on an actual Tuesday. And so that's actually kind of cool. But yeah, so we'll tune in for those games here this week. We'll see how that goes. And so tomorrow we'll have Alabama and Oregon. And then the next day we'll have Florida State and Utah, I think, from what I understand. And so tune in for that, guys. Otherwise, that's all we got for you tonight. Tune in next week or not next week necessarily, but yeah, definitely. Tune in next week for that Zeke special that we were talking about, and we'll catch y'all later. Bye-bye.